Good evening and welcome to the Hairenik Newscast. I'm your host, Alison Tamizian-Muse, and here are this week's top stories. Climate activist Greta Thunberg joins protests in Yerevan, speaking out against Azerbaijan's greenwashing of COP29. Meanwhile, at the UN summit in Baku, a U.S. congressman meets a hostile climate. At The Hague, Armenia's legal team secures key rulings in its ongoing case against Azerbaijan at the International Court of Justice. And here in Watertown, Massachusetts, a new statue of an eminent Armenian is unveiled. But let's go first to our correspondent outside the United Nations office in Yerevan.
Greetings, Hairenik. We are in front of the UN office in Yerevan where Greta Thunberg is holding a protest. Behind me are many environmentally concerned activists and the civil society. Greta just talked, raised her voice in defense of our POWs held in Baku. She mentioned the ethnic cleansing of Artsakh and the siege, and then she went in with a letter. Here we're going to talk to some of the protesters who are here today.
So first of all, as you know, the topic is Azerbaijan is not the most eco-friendly country. It's not also the most human-friendly country, and it is very strange that a conference for ecology is held in such a country, in a dictatorship, in an authoritarian regime that holds, that carries out genocide, that is first and foremost dependent on fuels, gas. When we talk about ecology, everything is related. It may not be obvious at the first sight because these things are very global and not everyday, and people might think that, oh, this is something not concerning us directly. But if you look really from bird's eye view and you see that everything is connected and how the countries behave towards each other, how they behave towards the nature, how individuals behave towards each other and animals and nature is very important.
Azerbaijan is also given the platform and legitimacy on the world stage once again to greenwash, peacewash and whitewash their extreme human rights abuses. When we say climate justice, we mean justice for everyone. We cannot pretend to be caring about the climate and environment when countries like Azerbaijan, that is responsible and complicit in ethnic cleansing and genocide, gets to set the agenda. A country that obviously has no intention of doing real climate action.
While Greta Thunberg was campaigning in Yerevan, a very different kind of protest was happening in Baku. U.S. Congressman Frank Pallone, a ranking member of the House Energy Committee, was greeted by a mob of government-backed protesters, jeering and harassing him over his advocacy on behalf of Armenia and Artsakh. In a press conference held on his return, he said, were it not for the U.S. security detail, he likely would have ended up in the hospital. U.S. Senators Sheldon, Whitehouse, and Ed Markey also flew to Baku for the premier UN climate event, and they used their platform to send a strong message about Artsakh Armenians' right of return and the imperative to release Armenian hostages held more than a year in captivity. At a press conference in Baku, the senators were asked by a Baku TV reporter why the U.S. had not sanctioned Armenia. Here was their response.
Senator Markey and I support Armenia, both of us. We are very regretful that the dislocation of so many Armenians has taken place. To put it mildly, I'm far from convinced that Armenians are to blame for that. And I don't want to dwell in the home of my hosts on human rights issues, but if that were to be the topic, I would not be very complimentary.
We believe that the political prisoners should be released. We believe there should be a right of return of Armenians to Nagorno-Karabakh.
Let's go now to news from The Hague, where Armenia is suing Azerbaijan for racial discrimination at the International Court of Justice. Azerbaijan launched a mirror case against Armenia under the same convention, outlawing racial discrimination. But this past week, the court threw out all of Azerbaijan's preliminary objections. Armenia's case will now proceed to the merits phase. Armenia's ruling party had previously raised the possibility of withdrawing its legal claims if Baku were to do the same. But this latest victory at the ICJ makes clear Azerbaijan did not have a case to begin with. And lastly, a special report from historic Watertown, Massachusetts, where a bronze bust of Komitas, priest, composer, ethnomusicologist, and teacher, now stands tall outside the Armenian Cultural and Educational Center. This year marked the 155th anniversary of Komitas' birth, and in his honor, Dr. Megerdich Tarakcan, a sculptor, decided to immortalize the genocide survivor and savior of Armenian folk music.
We are a community of Armenians here that have gathered in diaspora, and we face daily challenges, struggles of preserving our ethnic identity. As we know, one of our biggest saviors, the person who saved our identity in the 19th century, is Komitas. And Komitas, by gathering all our ethnic songs from the villages, he cleansed them and recomposed them to present them to the Armenian people and of course to the world. And by doing so, he preserved the Armenian identity. By bringing Komitas here and having an event like this is a statement that we Armenians here in Greater Boston, we are committed to preserve the ethnic identity, the Armenian identity, through our culture and educational events, and especially today by doing the unveiling of the statue of Komitas. It is a statement and a message to our youth, to our new generation, that Boston Armenians will do everything, especially this cultural center, along with everybody else in this community. We will do everything to preserve our Armenian culture and transfer it to our new generation and teach them about the heritage and the richness of our culture and nation.
That's all for this week. Please subscribe to our channel on YouTube at Hairenik, and be sure to tune in next week.